What is your first feeling when looking at this painting? The Swiss artist Arnold Bocklin painted 6 different versions of the Isle of the Dead, showing a small island filled with rocks and tall cypresses, a tree that is very common on cemeteries in the south of Europe. And the intrigue of this painting is that Böcklin leaves it up to the viewer to interpret the location and the setting. It's a mix between mysticism, romanticism, and symbolism. Look, for example, at the rowboat on which we can identify an oarsman, a shrouded figure, both with their backs toward us, and a coffin with a cloth over it. It surely shows the last journey of someone to a cemetery island, but it's unclear who the figure in white is. One interpretation is that he or she is an ancient priest. Another one is related to an old Italian legend which tells that the dead person steps into the coffin himself. And the dark river they are crossing reminds people of the stories of the river Styx in Greek mythology, where Charon the ferryman rows the dead in groups across to the underworld. And then there's the question of all these openings in the rocks. Are these burial chambers filled with bodies? And if so, what happened to them? The painting truly invites one to form their own feeling, and the 19th century Swiss writer Joseph Victor Whitman captured his feelings as follows. A boat glides towards the Isle of Death. Its approach is watched by spirit eyes, and spirits wait to receive it. For many decades, people have discussed which specific location would have inspired Böcklin for this painting, like the English cemetery in Florence, a small island in front of Naples, or possibly this island near Montenegro, which was photographed in 1932. The jury is still out about this, but personally I remember visiting a large cemetery island near Venice, known as Isola di San Michele, which gave a similar vibe as this painting, albeit on a much grander scale. No people living there, just surrounded by dead people, and the occasional funeral, just as in this painting where the oarsman is bringing a coffin to the island. Böcklin's paintings of the Isle of the Dead became very popular and were reproduced many times, partly because it fit in a period when people were reconsidering what to do with the bodies of the dead. Cemeteries were not considered healthy places, they were smelly and were believed to be a place where diseases spread easily. And with the increasing urbanization, cemeteries that first lay peacefully outside the city were now surrounded by houses. Some cities decided to create large cemeteries far away from the city where the dead would be taken by train, but this idea was far from popular with everybody, as it felt as if bodies were just considered items of freight that needed to be transported far away. Another discussion that was started was that of cremating people, something that would solve the issues of limited space, smell and diseases. And amongst this debate was the painting of Böcklin. Many loved the appeal of a calm place where the dead would find their rest, among some pretty nature, rather than in between smoky factories. And then there were these cypresses that had a long history of surrounding the tombs of the dead, with their evergreen and long-lived nature, symbolizing both the idea of life and eternity after death. Arnold Bocklin created 6 different versions of the Isle of the Dead, of which the 4th version has been destroyed by the end of World War II, and we only have a black and white image of that one left. In April of the year 1880, Böcklin was 53 years old and pretty poor. One day, he was working on a commission for his patron Alexander Günther for the painting that would eventually become the Isle of the Dead. He was working at that time in Florence, and while he was halfway done with the painting, he received another patron named Marie Bernat in his studio, and she was so impressed by the work in progress that she wanted to get her own version of it as a memory to her husband that had died 15 years earlier. Böcklin had already painted the rowboat with the oarsman in there on his way to the island. And Marie Bernat suggested adding the draped coffin and the shrouded figure to the boat. Böcklin created this version for her and added these new elements to the original commission. When finished a couple of months later, he named both works Tomb Island, and he wrote Marie Bernat that you will be able to dream yourself into the world of dark shadows. Fast forward 3 years later to 1883, and the dealer of Böcklin commissioned a third version. It was the first time that he added his initials to the painting, which you may see above the burial chamber on the right if you look carefully. In 1884, he painted a fourth version that is now destroyed, and in 1886 he received another commission for this painting from the Museum of Fine Arts in Leipzig. And finally, there's a sixth version that he started in 1900, the year before his death, and was made together with his son Carlo. It is quite similar to the first two versions of the painting, though the main elements in each painting are the same. Böcklin did make some small variations in the colors, the height of the rocks, the position of the cypresses and the burial chambers, and it's a fun thing to compare two different versions next to each other to really appreciate the various details in this work. During the beginning of the 20th century, Owl of the Dead became very popular in Central Europe, with one famous writer mentioning that the reproduction of this painting could be found in every home in Berlin. And among the admirers of this painting was also the German Chancellor Adolf Hitler, who in 1933 had personally acquired the third version that Böcklin painted. And you can see evidence on the insert here showing Hitler with the Russian Foreign Minister Molotov in front of the painting in November 1940. Now, if you have made it this far into this gloomy video, Böcklin also made another painting in this series. In 1888, after completing his first 5 versions of the Island of the Dead, he created the Island of Life. Here, swans are swimming in the water together with several mythical people, both in the water and on the lush island. Just as for his Owl of the Dead, Böcklin tried to capture a mood and did not explain the contents of either of these paintings to anybody in public. The works of Böcklin have inspired many people over time, including a lot of artists. I wanted to show one more work by Carl Diefenbach, who painted this version as an homage to Böcklin, who had died a few years before. Well, I hope you found the discussion of this intriguing work interesting. And if you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and leave a comment down below with your thoughts about this painting. Thanks for watching.